Good morning, everyone. Let's look at the various definitions of development proposed by various social scientists and theorists. The first one here is by Everett Rogers, who in 1976 proposed this definition. So what he says is development could be defined as a widely participatory process of directed social change in society intended to bring about both social and material advancement, including greater equality, freedom, and other valued qualities for the majority of people through their gaining greater control over their environment. Okay, now let's run through it. A widely participatory process. Development could only be participatory in nature. It can't be directed for handful of individuals, or it can't be focusing on just one community. Okay, so because it is participatory in nature, largely more number of people need to participate, need to contribute to the process of directed social change. So there must be some sort of a guidance, some sort of a framework, some sort of a direction to bring in any kind of a social change if we're looking at the larger perspective of development in society, intended to bring about both social and material advancement. So at one end, focus has always been at the most individual level. The focus has always been material advancement. We look at material advancement as a very important aspect of development measure, but equally we need to pay attention to social as well, including greater equality, freedom, and other valued qualities. So equality, freedom, and those kind of qualities need to be paid attention to. Equality for all, freedom for all, and then when people are free and feel people free, equal in the society, there is a larger possibility that they might holistically contribute to this participatory process of development for majority of the people through their gaining greater control over their environment. Because we reside in a particular society, because we reside in a particular environment, we must have a very healthy and a structural relationship with the environment. So if we can take care of our environment, so here control is not being referred to as something which is negative in nature, rather understanding the immediate surrounding or the ambience where you reside, irrespective of any community you are a part of. So the moment you contribute to the society in a participatory way, and in the process you gain equality, you gain freedom, freedom from poverty, equality from any kind of distinction that happens between you and the community. It would be largely beneficial. This process creates growth, progress, positive change, or the addition of physical, economic, environmental, social, and demographic component. So the process of the process of development could only be looked at from the point of view or perspective of positive social change, in addition to physical, economic, environmental, social, and demographic components. So as and when we proceed through this semester, we would try to engage more and more and see how these factors, how the physical, how the economic, how the environmental, social, and demographic factors contribute to the process of development, so on and so forth. The purpose of development is a rise in the level and quality of life of the population. So unless the quality of life, we have been constantly talking about it, if the quality of life of the population is not better, then we can't say that this community or this society is developed in nature. And then the creation or expansion of local regional income. Yesterday session, in the previous session, I did speak about why it is important to pay attention to the local models as proposed by the social scientists of the 70s. Once you identify what are the strengths, what are the potential of the local people, then it would lead to some sort of discussion or debates about how employment opportunities could be created for these local communities. And when the local regional income expands, employment opportunities gets better up without damaging the resources of the environment, then we can actually say that okay, we are developing as a community, or we have developed or reached a certain stage of economic advancement. So the attention should always be given to the quality of life of the population, and then see to it that there is enough expansion on the local regional income front, okay, and employment opportunities front. Development is visible and useful, not necessarily immediately in, and includes an aspect of quality change and the creation of conditions for continuation of that change, okay. Because it is social and material in nature to a large extent, development is not some utopic idea which sort of floats uh, in the ether. It's something that you and me experience on an everyday basis, enjoy, and it's very much useful in the context of community development, and it's a long term process, like I told. Both economic as well as social development or cultural development, any kind of any significant advancement that you would notice will take time. So it's not something that happens immediately, and the aspect of quality change would also be included, and it takes a rather long process. So you have to experience those changes as and when it occurs to us, and see that how policymakers, how as individual civil society members, we can contribute to kind of put it in a process of continuum, okay, creating necessary conducive conditions so that this sort of change that happens in the society is possible. Amartya Sen, for example, developed the capability approach. So he defines development from a capability perspective, which says he defined development as a tool enabling people to reach their highest level of their ability through granting of freedom of action, that is freedom of economic, social, and family actions. Let's look at what he refers to here. Okay, capability, as we understand, is basically having the potential to do something. So capability approach towards defining development could be looked at from a point of view that all the enabling tools that people have, that could be better healthcare, better education, needs, the basic amenities being taken care of. So once we reach that stage, we would be in a state to attain greater freedom of action. And what he refers to greater freedom of action is freedom of economic, social, and family action. That you can make economic choices. You can make better economic choices to help yourself and people within your community or within your family to achieve a certain economic advancement. Then social and family actions. So once you achieve that sort of a economic freedom, then what are you doing with that economic freedom? How are you contributing back to the society? What are you doing with that sort of an economic advancement by helping the society become a better place to live in? And then the family actions. So family actions would be taking care of everything that happens within the family. Having a certain amount of financial control always helps in taking better decisions within the family. It could be, for example, your parents wanting you to go and join a better place of education because you would get better exposure, and when you pass out of a particular institution, whether that institution is conducive enough to help you survive and float in the job market, and whether it would work that way. This approach became the basis for the measurement of development by the HDI, that is the Human Development Index, which was developed by the UNDP program in 1990. So this document that this sort of an idea that Amartya Sen proposed for the definition of development helped UNDP, that is the United Nations Development Program, kind of come up with an idea of measuring human development, and that led to the formulation of the Human Development Index, which is now widely used from 1990s onwards across countries to to quantify whether human development actually happens at the most foundational level, and it helps compare different countries and what their HDI is. Martha Nussbaum developed the abilities approach in the field of gender and emphasized the empowerment of women as a development tool. So while Amartya Sen focused on the capability approach, Martha Nussbaum focused on the abilities approach towards the in the field of gender. So what she proposed is that unless we pay attention to the women in the community, women in the house, women in the society, and see to it that they get empowered, or they feel empowered from various perspectives, that we don't domesticate them, that we allow them or to help them, help create a sustainable space where they can study and grow. So the empowerment of women as a development tool was the focus Martha Nussbaum offered, from a perspective of looking at development from an ability point of view, that if opportunities are given to women and nice conducive atmosphere is created for them, it will be helpful for them to achieve their fullest potential, and that would eventually contribute to social development, that would eventually contribute to a stage where we can call ourselves truly developed. In contrast, there are professionals like Jeffrey Sachs and Paul Collier who focused on mechanisms that prevent or oppress development in various countries and cause them to linger in abject poverty for dozens of years. Now, what Jeffrey Sachs and Paul Collier spoke about when they tried to define development is looking at what are the barriers, or what are the issues or the challenges that kind of oppresses development, or that doesn't allow development to happen in various countries. So identifying those those barriers, very important. These are the various poverty traps, including civil wars, loss of natural resources or lack of natural resources, and poverty itself. The identification of these traps enables relating to political, economic, social conditions in a country in an attempt to advance development. So we can truly reach our potential as a country or as a community or as a society once we identify what are the poverty traps. Why is a country poor? Is it poor because it lacks natural resources? Is it poor because poverty itself looms large, and the country is constantly in an economic turmoil? And if it happens, and what our policymakers are doing in order to change such sort of a situation. So once these traps, these poverty traps, are identified, and because they're interconnected with how we look at the political system or the political structure, how we look at the economic factors, and whether we are looking at enough social conditions in a particular country to see to it that those things can be eradicated eventually, that the poverty traps can be cut down. This happens most of the times. If you take up any country for that matter, if you see what are the reasons that primarily leads to civil wars in different places, the primary thing is economy and poverty. If people are poor, they lack basic education, they lack basic health care. Most of the times they're left jobless. So when people are left jobless, it's relatively easier for the triggering elements, and the triggering elements could be people in political opposition, people who want to instigate religious factions, or divide people or divide communities on any lines. Any civil war that has happened across the world, if you look at it, the primary reason would be this, that if people are not given enough resources, enough education, enough employment, the engagement would not be constructive in nature. It would lead to some sort of political turmoil, and because these are intricately connected, the social conditions of that particular community or the society or the country would not improve. One of the emphases in the work of Jeffrey Sachs is the promotion of sustainable development. This is probably for the first time sustainable development. The word sustainable is prefixed with development, and it's something that I had been talking about right from the introductory lecture, that why it is so crucial that our development be sustainable in nature. Unless we pay attention to sustainable development, we can't talk of development in isolation. Then it would be very fraction and it would be very myopic in nature, which believes in growth and development in order to raise the standard of living of citizens of the world today. So he's not just focusing on one particular country or not offering one model which would fit every country or every community for that matter. By looking at what is there in our environment, by looking at our natural resources, by looking at our employment opportunities, by looking at the places which are harshest or which are not so conducive, what can be done in those communities to cut down on the barriers. Okay, so everything that we are doing, or we our policymakers have been doing, we need to be critical of those steps. We need to be critical of those positions that the establishment or the dispensations are taking, and we also need to kind of re-examine our situation, our stand, our status quo most of the times, because everything that we'll be doing would have a larger impact on the forthcoming generation, and this is something that is true to the previous generations as well. So whatever our parents did, or whatever people in our communities or in our societies in our country they did, it did impact us in more one way or the other, and it happens decade to decade. If you look at your parents, most of the times the conversation would be, okay, we lack the opportunities that you guys are getting right now. Your grandparents would say the same thing about your parents, so on and so forth. So as the time progresses, generations come by, and then we need to look at development from a sustainable point of view. We need to see what could be done in the larger framework of things, so as to make development a sustainable one, not an elusive one, not something that is only for a handful, not something which is could be restricted only to group of people. And we can't just look at symbolic structures and say that, okay, this country has developed, but then there are these local crises that looms large. So development could be looked at from a point of view, perspective which could be sustainable in nature. Okay, something that can be sustained through generations. So though policy changes are important, and it is also always a work in progress, and always an evolving, always in an evolving situation, but we also need to look at it, that every decision that we take at this point in time, how is it affecting the planet, how is it affecting our immediate communities, our societies, and it could be by something as small as opening a public community health center in the most harshest of places, to seeing to it that, okay, what are the scope and opportunity for the urban dwellers to contribute to sustainable development. One small example to look at, when we talk about defining sustainable development, could be this, that just for the fact that we have access to economic freedom, in the sense that we have money and then we can buy everything. Most of the times we end up actually mindlessly shopping, and those sort of things also kind of contributes to reverse contributes to to our environment. Okay, you buy a bottle of water and then you drink and you throw that, becomes a single-use plastic sort of a thing, and then that goes into the landfill. So the environment gets hampered or gets affected in this way. So it's very simple to carry a bottle of water whenever it is possible, but we most of the time ignore. So because we say, okay, just 10 bucks or 20 bucks, we can always buy a bottle of water and drink. But what happens? We don't carry that plastic along throughout our life, right? We throw it off, and then we don't think about it, or anything for that matter that comes in plastic. Now, to a large extent, this has been happening all across the world, but it needs to start from ourselves as individuals, and then we can see what we can do in our immediate surrounding to help better. It could be spreading awareness, it could be making other people know about the hazards of single-use plastic, so that our next generation could have a better life altogether. So that is one small example that kind of reflects upon how sustainable development could be achieved. So this is more or less about the definition of development. Now, as and when we proceed and progress, we would have better understanding of how we can come up with our own definitions of development by looking at theories, by analyzing what has been proposed by these great economic thinkers, so on and so forth. So hope this session has been useful for you, and then I'll see you in the next session. Thank you so much.